So as with most of my videos, we're going to get right into it. So this car has 107,000 miles on it. It's time to change the spark plugs, and it's pretty simple. So you pretty much need to remove the intake. You're going to take the intake off. So we're doing the two clips that hold the intake box to the hoses that go to the actual intake. And then we're removing two bolts. Now you really only need two tools for this. So the first one is a 10mm socket, and the second one is a 14mm socket. And we didn't have a 14mm spark plug socket, so we used a magnet to pull the spark plugs out, and you can use that method as well instead of buying a 14mm spark plug socket. So we're going to remove the two bolts that hold the airbox to the top of the engine. I have no idea why this airbox is so complicated. I don't think it needs it, but I'm not an engineer for Honda, so I'm sure it has a purpose. So now we're going to take the actual airbox off, and because we took the clamps off, you'll see we can take the hoses off of the intake. So each spark plug has a coil that goes to it. So there's one bolt that holds on the coil. So you really just have to use a 10mm socket as we're doing here. And you pull off or take out the bolt, and then you're going to just pull out the coil. And that gives you complete access to the spark plugs. So at that point, you're really done your prep work. Now we chose to do it one at a time just to make it easy and keep things in the same cylinder. So we take one out, replace the spark plug, put it all back together, and then do the second one. So here we're going in with a 14mm socket. Keep in mind it's not a spark plug socket. And the spark plug socket just has kind of a piece of rubber on the inside that once it's all the way unscrewed, it doesn't let go of the spark plug and you can actually pull it up out of the hole. You don't need to use that. We didn't use it. And like I said, we just used a magnet and they came out perfectly fine. You just have to make sure they're unscrewed all the way. So this is us going in with the magnet. If you have a spark plug socket, you can skip this step because your spark plug should have come out when you unscrewed it all the way. But ours didn't, so here we are using a magnet and you can pull it right out. And if you're curious, this is what a spark plug with 107,000 miles on it looks like. So this next tip is extremely important. Don't skip it. You need to start the new spark plug by hand. And if you cross thread a spark plug hole, that's going to be an expensive fix and it's going to take some time to get it done. So you always want to start it by hand, and then as we're doing here, you go in with the wrench to make sure it's completely tightened, but you don't want to really crank it down. You just want to make sure it's torqued tight. So now we just kind of do the same process in reverse. We're going to put the coil back. We're going to make sure we push it down all the way. We're going to put the screw back in that holds it in place just to make sure it doesn't pop out. And then you move on to the next cylinder. You could do this whole engine in under 15-20 minutes. It's really not that difficult. And I wish more people would do this at home because it saves you a lot of money. Even going to an auto parts store and buying the spark plugs, you're not paying for labor at a dealer or another mechanic. That's going to save you a ton of money. So the final step is just putting the airbox back, and you saw exactly how it was taken off. You want to make sure that the one little pin lines up with the pin on the top of the engine, and if that goes in, you know it's seated right. There's also, you can line up the two bolt holes, but make sure you put the intake tubes back because you need to make sure the air is going through the filter and then into the engine and not just into those two holes. But it's a pretty simple process. We're going to put these back. You put the two screws back. You're pretty much done.